At exactly 2:41 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a security alert. Someone had just entered my apartment. I was 300 meters away in Washington, D.C., sitting in a classified Treasury Department briefing, which meant one thing for sure: whoever was in my home had no reason to be there. I quietly excused myself from the meeting and opened the live security feed on my phone. The video was crystal clear. Thanks to my clearance level and the constant threat assessments tied to my job, I'd been allowed to install government-grade surveillance inside my apartment. And there she was, my sister Vanessa, standing right in my living room, wearing that same look of effortless entitlement she'd carried all her life. She barely paused before heading straight toward my home office, ignoring everything else. I watched her try the door. It was locked, as always. Then she pulled something from her pocket, a small lock-picking set. My eyes narrowed. Since when did she know how to pick locks? It took her about 4 minutes, not bad for an amateur. When the door finally swung open and she stepped inside, my jaw tightened. I switched to the office camera feed. Vanessa walked straight to the wall safe behind my desk, the one hidden behind the framed map of the Treasury Department's organizational chart. That told me she'd been in my office before, probably during one of her so-called drop-ins, using the emergency key I'd left with our parents. She studied the electronic keypad for a few seconds, then started guessing codes: Mom's birthday, Dad's birthday, her own, each one wrong. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call. A minute later, she held the phone up to the keypad, some kind of hacking app, most likely. I mentally added a note to alert building security and tighten my system protocols later. About 5 minutes passed before I heard the faint click of the lock disengaging. Vanessa's face lit up with satisfaction as she opened the safe. She reached in and took out the sealed document folders stored inside. The confident grin on her face quickly faded into confusion. These weren't what she had expected. I knew exactly what she was holding: 3 folders containing bearer bonds issued by the United States Treasury. Their total face value, $400,000. Those documents weren't just random papers. They were protected government securities I'd been authorized to hold as part of my work with the Treasury Department, where I specialized in securities fraud investigations. Vanessa couldn't possibly grasp what she was taking. To her, they probably looked like fancy certificates or old stock papers. I watched as she slipped the folders into her oversized purse, shut the safe, and hurried out of my apartment. I stayed frozen for a moment, letting the reality of what I'd just seen sink in. Then I made 3 calls, one to my direct supervisor at Treasury, another to the Treasury Inspector General's office, and finally to the Secret Service Financial Crimes Task Force. The response was immediate and identical across all 3. Lock everything down, file the theft through official channels. Do not, under any circumstances, try to recover the securities yourself. These are registered instruments, my supervisor said, his tone tight with concern. Their serial numbers are logged in the federal database. If anyone tries to cash or transfer them, the system will flag it instantly. But Sarah, your sister just committed a federal offense. Multiple ones, actually. You understand that. I understand, I said quietly. Treasury doesn't take theft of government securities lightly. There's no overlooking something like this. I'm not asking for exceptions. I told him, I'm reporting the theft of protected federal property. Please follow standard protocol. There was a pause before he replied. The response team will move fast, and they'll be thorough. Good, I said, ending the call. I went back to the briefing, though I barely registered a single word. My thoughts kept looping over the footage, frame by frame: Vanessa breaking into my home, opening my safe, and walking away with nearly $400,000 in government securities. Vanessa, had always been the golden child, beautiful, charming, and effortlessly social in all the ways I never was. Our parents adored her. She married young to a moderately successful dentist, had 2 picture-perfect kids, and lived in a suburban McMansion that our mother never missed a chance to brag about. I, on the other hand, was the difficult one, too serious, too focused on work, and too uninterested in traditional family milestones. Right after grad school, I joined the Treasury Department with a master's degree in forensic accounting and spent 8 years climbing through increasingly classified positions. My current job involved investigating international securities fraud and money laundering operations. My family had no idea what I actually did. Whenever they asked about my job, I gave them vague answers about financial analysis and government work. They probably thought I was some mid-level bureaucrat pushing paper all day. They never asked why I held high-level clearance or why armed agents occasionally interviewed my neighbors for security checks. That evening, I caught a train to Philadelphia and reached my parents' house around 7. Vanessa's Range Rover was in the driveway, along with my parents' sedan and Uncle Mike's truck. A family dinner, apparently. Perfect. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. Everyone was already gathered in the dining room. Vanessa sat in her usual seat, glowing in a designer dress that probably cost more than my rent. Her husband, Derek, was beside her, scrolling through his phone. My parents were setting dishes on the table while Uncle Mike poured wine. Sarah, Mom looked up, surprised. "I didn't know you were coming for dinner. Surprise visit," I said lightly. "I had a little time off and thought I'd stop by." "How wonderful," she said, calling out to Dad. "Honey, both our girls are here together." Vanessa looked up, smiling that perfectly practiced smile she'd perfected in high school. "Hey, big sister, how's the office job? Busy? You know how government work is." "I really don't," she laughed, glancing at Derek. "All those forms and procedures, I don't know how you stand it." "It has its moments," I replied evenly. "How have you been?" "Wonderful, actually," she said, exchanging a look with Derek. "We've been making some exciting financial moves lately." "New investments?" "Oh," I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "What kind?" "Just some securities Derek's financial advisor recommended. Pretty sophisticated stuff, probably too complex to explain, but the returns look amazing." Mom and Dad joined us, smiling proudly. Vanessa was just telling us about her new investments. Mom said, "Derek's firm is doing so well, we're setting up college funds for the kids." Vanessa added, "Want to make sure they have every opportunity." "That's smart," I said. "Where'd you get the capital for these investments? That must take a lot of money." Derek cleared his throat. "We've been saving aggressively, making smart choices." Vanessa smiled wider. "Actually, I should thank you, Sarah. Thank me. I stopped by your apartment earlier this week. Used that emergency key Mom and Dad have. Hope you don't mind. I wanted to borrow that book you mentioned." I hadn't mentioned any book. We both knew she was lying. "Did you find what you were looking for?" I asked quietly. "Sort of," she said, her tone casual. "I found your little safe behind that boring treasury map in your office. Since you never changed the combination from Mom's birthday, terrible security. By the way, I opened it up. There were some papers in there, old bonds or something. Probably something Grandpa left you. Since they were just sitting there doing nothing, I figured you wouldn't mind if I borrowed them." The table went dead silent. "Borrowed them," I repeated, "for the kids' college fund." She said quickly, "Those old bonds can be cashed and reinvested. We're actually helping you, otherwise they'd just gather dust forever." She reached into her purse and pulled out the folders, setting them on the table like trophies. "See, just old government bonds. The advisor says they're worth maybe a few thousand, 10,000 tops. Still not bad." Derek leaned in to inspect them. "They do look legitimate. The firm should be able to process them next week." I looked at Vanessa calmly. Did you break into my home? Don't be dramatic. I used a key. Did you force open my locked office door? She waved a hand. I watched a few YouTube tutorials. It wasn't that hard. Did you bypass my safe's security system? There's an app for that. Honestly, Sarah, if you're going to keep valuables, you need better protection. Anyone could have gotten in. Dad's expression darkened. Mom looked confused, torn between us. You committed breaking and entering. I said steadily. You bypassed a secured lock, hacked an electronic safe, and stole its contents. Stole. Vanessa laughed. Come on, we're family. It's not stealing from your sister. You weren't using them anyway. When's the last time you even looked at those papers? Last month. I said, during my quarterly audit. You're what? I picked up my phone and placed it on the table. Those aren't old bonds from Grandpa. They're bearer bonds issued by the United States Treasury, current series, total face value, $400,000. They're registered federal instruments. I said evenly, authorized for my custody as part of my position with the Treasury Department. The color drained from Vanessa's face. What are you talking about? I'm a senior financial analyst with the Treasury's Securities Fraud Investigation Division. I continued. I hold a top secret clearance. Those bonds in your purse are protected government securities I manage as part of an active investigation into international financial crimes. Derek froze, his hand still gripping his wine glass. These are government-issued securities, I explained. They're part of a system we use to trace and identify fraud networks. Each one is serialized and tracked in the federal database. The moment anyone tries to cash, transfer, or even verify them with a financial institution, it triggers an automatic alert to the Treasury Inspector General's office. You're lying, Vanessa stammered, her voice rising. You're just trying to scare me. I reported the theft 4 hours ago. I said calmly, to my supervisor, to the Inspector General, and to the Secret Service Financial Crimes Task Force. They've been monitoring your movements since you left my apartment. The doorbell rang. Everyone at the table flinched, everyone except me. I'd been expecting this, that, I said quietly, would be the response team. The bell rang again, followed by a firm knock and a commanding voice. Treasury Inspector General. We need to speak with Vanessa Morrison. Mom went pale. Sarah, what's happening? Vanessa committed multiple federal offenses. I said simply, now she's going to face the consequences. Dad started to rise. I'll get the door. Dad, no. Vanessa grabbed his arm. Don't let them in. Sarah's lying. This is some kind of sick joke. It's not a joke. I looked her straight in the eye. You broke into a secured federal residence. You bypassed a protected safe. You stole $400,000 in U.S. Treasury instruments. And you just confessed right here at this table that you plan to cash them through an advisor. That's theft of government property, tampering with federal security systems, and attempted securities fraud. All federal felonies. The knocking grew louder, more forceful. We have a warrant. Open the door now. Derek pushed back his chair, face ashen. Vanessa, what did you do? I didn't know, she cried, her voice cracking. How was I supposed to know she had government bonds? She works some boring office job. She never tells us anything. I have top secret clearance. I said quietly, I can't tell you anything. That's what clearance means. Dad opened the door and 4 federal agents stepped inside, fully equipped and alert. Leading them was a woman in a dark jacket marked Treasury Inspector General. She raised her credentials. I'm Special Agent Lisa Martinez, Treasury Inspector General, she said, her voice calm but firm. We have a warrant for the arrest of Vanessa Morrison and for the recovery of stolen federal securities. Her eyes locked onto Vanessa. Ma'am, I need you to stand and step away from the table. This is insane. Vanessa cried, tears spilling down her cheeks. "They're just papers. Sarah's my sister. This is a family issue, ma'am." Agent Martinez said steadily, "The items you took are United States Treasury bearer bonds valued at $400,000. They are registered federal securities protected under Title 19 U.S. Code Section 631. Your theft, combined with your intent to cash them, constitutes multiple federal offenses. Please stand up." Vanessa looked around wildly at our parents, at Derek, at Uncle Mike, her panic rising. "Somebody do something. She's sending me to jail over some stupid bonds. $400,000. Agent Martinez corrected, "In protected government securities. Not stupid. Federal property." Two agents moved closer and lifted Vanessa to her feet. She tried to pull away, but it was useless. "Vanessa Morrison." One agent read from a document, "You are under arrest for theft of government property, defeating federal security systems, and attempted securities fraud. You have the right to remain silent." "Sarah, please," she sobbed, mascara streaking down her face. "I'm your sister. We grew up together. You can't do this to me. You did this to yourself," I said quietly. "You broke into my home. You stole federal property. You planned to cash it. I didn't make you do any of that." The agents cuffed her wrists. Derek stood motionless, staring at his wife like he didn't recognize her. Agent Martinez picked up the folders from the table and flipped through them. "All three accounted for," she said. "Serial numbers match the reported theft." Then she turned to me. "Dr. Chin will need you at the field office tomorrow morning to verify the instruments and provide your official statement." "Of course," I replied. "What time?" 9:10 a.m. "Ask for me, Agent Martinez." She gave a brief nod, and her team led Vanessa toward the door. My sister was still crying, her expensive dress wrinkled, her perfect hair undone. "Mom, Dad, please don't let them take me," she begged. Our parents stood frozen, helpless, watching their golden child being escorted out of their own dining room by federal agents. "Wait," Mom's voice broke as she spoke. How long could she? Agent Martinez paused at the door. "Theft of government property carries up to 11 years. Defeating federal security measures adds another 5. Attempted securities fraud is 20 more. The U.S. attorney will decide final charges, but your daughter could be facing up to 35 years in federal prison." Dad's voice cracked. 35 years for taking some bonds from her sister, for stealing $400,000 in protected federal securities. Martinez corrected firmly. "The Treasury Department doesn't negotiate these charges, sir. They can't. Doing so would jeopardize national financial security." Through the window, I watched as they placed Vanessa into a black SUV parked in the driveway. She was still crying, still insisting it was all a mistake. The vehicle doors closed, and the convoy pulled away. Inside, the room was silent, except for my mother's quiet sobs. Finally, Uncle Mike broke the silence. "Sarah, what exactly do you do for the government?" I looked down for a moment before answering. "I investigate international securities fraud and money laundering operations," I said softly. "Criminal networks that try to manipulate financial markets. I handle classified information, and those papers Vanessa stole were part of an active investigation." "And Vanessa just stole $400,000 in Treasury bonds that are actively tracked by federal databases," Uncle Mike said slowly. "Yes," I confirmed. "The moment she walked out of my apartment with them, the system flagged the theft. When she brought them to her financial advisor, he'd have been legally required to verify them with Treasury, and that verification alone would have triggered an automatic federal investigation, even if I hadn't reported it." Derek sank back into his chair, looking pale. "Her advisor, oh God. When he tries to process them, he'll be questioned, won't he? He'll be treated as a potential co-conspirator." I said, Treasury will determine whether he knew the bonds were stolen. If he did, even slightly, he'll face charges too. We didn't know. Derek said weakly. I swear, we had no idea she'd taken anything. She told me she found some old bonds in your apartment that you said she could have them. That's not what happened, I said flatly. She broke into my home, picked my office lock, cracked my safe, stole federal property. The security footage shows everything. Mom lifted her head, her face streaked with tears. Security footage. I have surveillance in my apartment. I said. It's required for my clearance level. The recordings have already been turned over to the Inspector General's office. They show every moment of her break-in, timestamps, her tools, everything. Mom stared at me, her voice trembling. You were watching when she broke in. I was in Washington, D.C. in a classified briefing. My phone sent an alert and I pulled up the live feed. I said quietly, and you just watched her. Mom's voice cracked. You didn't call her, didn't try to stop her. I called the Treasury Inspector General's office. I said, my tone steady but soft. I followed protocol. That's what I'm required to do when government securities are stolen. Dad's hands were shaking. She's your sister, Sarah, your own sister. How could you let them arrest her over money? This isn't about money, I said firmly. It's about federal crimes. She didn't just take something that belonged to me. She stole classified government property. If I hadn't reported it, I'd be charged with conspiracy. I'd lose my clearance, my career, and I could end up in prison right beside her. Mom's voice was pleading now. But surely you could have worked something out, given her a warning, told her to give them back. The bonds were in her possession for 4 hours, I said. In that time, she contacted a financial advisor and started the process of cashing them in. That's attempted securities fraud. There's no warning for that. The law doesn't care that we share DNA. It cares that she committed a federal offense. The room fell into silence again. Only the faint ticking of the dining room clock filled the space where words had run out. Uncle Mike rubbed his face. Jesus Christ, he muttered. Vanessa always thought the rules didn't apply to her. They don't, I said quietly. Because you all made sure they never did. Every time she messed up, someone here fixed it. Someone made excuses. Someone smoothed things over. But you can't smooth over federal crimes. The Treasury Department doesn't care that she's pretty or charming or that Mom and Dad love her more. That's not fair. Mom snapped. We don't love her more, don't you? I looked around the table. When's the last time any of you asked about my work, my life? When's the last time you came to see me? You've been to Vanessa's house dozens of times. I've lived in Philadelphia for 9 years. And you've visited twice. No one said a word. The silence answered for them. Vanessa assumed my work didn't matter because you all assumed it didn't. She thought those bonds were just old papers because none of you ever believed I might be successful. That maybe, just maybe, I actually do something important. Sarah, Dad started, but I cut him off. I hold a top secret security clearance, I said evenly. I earn $159,000 a year. I've received 3 commendations from the Secretary of the Treasury for dismantling international fraud networks. Last year alone, I helped recover $95 million in stolen securities. But none of you know that because you never asked. Derek was staring at me like he didn't recognize me. You make that much, he said quietly. Vanessa told me you probably made 40 or 50. She told you that because she assumed it, I replied. Because all of you assumed it. I don't live in a McMansion, I don't drive a Range Rover, and I don't talk about money at dinner, so you decided I must not have any. Uncle Mike frowned. Then where does it go, all that money? Investments, retirement funds, charitable foundations. I said, I live simply because I like it that way, not because I can't afford anything else. But Vanessa saw my lifestyle and mistook it for failure. She thought those bonds in my safe were some dusty inheritance instead of active federal securities. I'm legally bound to protect. At that moment, Agent Martinez returned from outside. Dr. Chin, one more thing, she said. We recovered Vanessa Morrison's phone. She'd been researching how to crack safes for the past 2 weeks. There are also search records about cashing old bonds and claiming family assets. This wasn't impulsive, she planned it. The weight of those words hit hard. 2 weeks, I murmured. She spent 2 weeks planning to rob me. The U.S. attorney will use that as proof of premeditation, Martinez said. It strengthens the case significantly. She turned to Derek. Mr. Morrison, we'll need to speak with you as well. You're not under arrest, but we need to determine what you knew about your wife's actions. Derek nodded silently. When Agent Martinez left, the house fell into another long silence. It took 9 months for the case to reach court. Vanessa's lawyer tried every angle, claiming she thought the bonds were family property, insisting she didn't understand their value, even suggesting I'd given her permission to enter my apartment. But none of it worked. The security footage sealed her fate. It showed everything of Vanessa breaking into my apartment, picking the lock on my office with tools she'd purchased online using a safe, cracking app on her phone, and taking the folders that held the Treasury bonds. Her phone records revealed 2 full weeks of research into how to open safes and cash old securities. Her text messages to Derek made her intentions unmistakable. Found Sarah's secret stash, might be worth serious dollars. The financial advisor testified that she'd contacted him about old Treasury bonds and asked how to get the best return with no questions asked. He'd refused to process them and instead reported the conversation to his firm's compliance department, which flagged the matter to Treasury before her arrest. In court, the federal prosecutor laid out the case step by step. Theft of government property. The bonds were federal instruments worth over $400,000 taken without authorization. Defeating federal security systems. She'd researched, purchased, and used lock, picking tools, and used a digital app to breach a government grade safe. Attempted securities fraud. She tried to cash federal assets she knew didn't belong to her. The jury deliberated for 5 hours. The verdict came back, guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced her to 12 years in federal prison, plus $400,000 in restitution and $150,000 in additional fines for breaching federal security systems. Vanessa sobbed through the sentencing. Mom and Dad sat behind the railing, looking years older than they had 9 months earlier. Derek had filed for divorce halfway through the trial. Before handing down the sentence, the judge spoke directly to Vanessa. You didn't steal from a store or a stranger. You targeted your own sister, someone who trusted you because you believed she was weak and her work unimportant. You violated her home, her security, and her trust. And because the property you stole was federal, this isn't just theft. It's a matter of national security. Court cannot treat it lightly regardless of family ties. After court, Mom tried to speak to me. I wasn't unkind, but I didn't soften my words. She made her choices, Mom. Every step of the way, she chose this. She's still your sister, Mom said quietly. And I'm still the daughter you never asked about, I replied. The one you dismissed as unimportant. Vanessa didn't come up with that idea herself, she learned it from you. Mom flinched. That's not fair. Isn't it? When's the last time you asked about my work, or told anyone you were proud of me? You've spent years bragging about Vanessa's house and her husband. What have you ever said about me? She didn't have an answer. 3 years later, I was promoted to senior supervisory analyst, leading a team of 12 investigators on international securities cases. My clearance was upgraded to top secret/PSI, and the Secretary of the Treasury himself presented me with the Distinguished Service Award for helping recover $340 million in fraudulent bonds. My parents didn't attend the ceremony. I didn't invite them. Vanessa will be eligible for parole in 9 years. The restitution order will follow her for life. Her house has been foreclosed, Derek remarried, and the kids live with him. They barely speak to her now. Sometimes I wonder if she finally understands what she actually stole. Not just the bonds, but the years of trust, respect, and the chance to still have a family. Maybe she's realized that her boring bureaucrat sister wasn't just pushing papers, but protecting hundreds of millions of dollars that keep the financial system stable. But most days, I don't think about her. I just focus on my work. The securities markets don't care about family drama. The fraud cases I work on don't need validation from people who will never understand them. The work matters, and that's enough. My apartment now has military-grade security, biometric locks, encrypted safes with tamper, evident technology, and AI-monitored surveillance systems. The Inspector General's office approved every upgrade, and Treasury covered the installation. I never changed the emergency key policy, though. My parents still have one. They've just never used it, not to visit, not to check in. I'm not bitter about it anymore. I've just stopped expecting anything from people who never valued what I do. Last month, one of my investigations led to the arrest of an international fraud ring responsible for stealing $3 billion in securities across 7 countries. The story made international headlines. 3 foreign governments sent official commendations. For a moment, I thought about sending the articles to my parents. Then I remembered the years of quiet dismissal. It's just a desk job. When are you going to do something important with your life? Vanessa's doing so well, maybe you should be more like her. So instead, I printed the commendations, filed them neatly in my office, and moved on to the next case. Some people spend their whole lives waiting for their family to recognize their worth. I decided to stop waiting. My work protects the financial security of the United States. That's meaning enough. The bonds I guard don't need my family's approval to matter, and neither do I. Vanessa writes sometimes. Letters from the federal prison in West Virginia, where she's serving her sentence. They usually begin with apologies and end with requests to talk to the prosecutor, to help reduce her sentence, to assist with her restitution, or to write a letter to the parole board. I don't respond, not out of cruelty, but because some lessons only sink in when no one steps in to save you. Vanessa spent her whole life believing the rules didn't apply to her, that her charm and her status as the favorite daughter made her untouchable. Federal prison is teaching her otherwise, and I'm learning something too, that my worth doesn't depend on whether my family ever sees it. The work is enough, the cases I solve, the frauds I stop, the securities I protect, that's enough. Some people are born into families who celebrate their success. Others have to build their own validation, one classified briefing, one commendation at a time, until the work speaks so loudly that even the doubters can't pretend not to hear it. I built mine, and no one, not even family, can ever steal that away.